Hello, my friends. I have such a gift for you today. My name is Gretchen Vogel. I've been a practicing psychic trance channel. I'm the author of 3 books. Thank you for coming to play with the ideas that I present on my channel. Today, we're going to talk about how we can know and feel that we are not the story of ourselves in each lifetime. I like to think of this a little bit as the Wizard of Oz, the wizard himself who was behind the curtain. Think of the curtain as the story that is what we think of as ourselves. But really, the consciousness that is expressing that story, feeling the elements on this planet, trying to create in the density of this reality and expressing something of God's source. This is so much bigger than us as individuals. And yet here we are immersed in our stories. And then when our stories end, we grieve the people that were those stories, but yet they continue. I'm going to share part of an incredibly beautiful meditation that I did with my dear friend, Gert Venghaus. And Gert, to give you a little bit of backstory, he was a practicing Buddhist, a much more profound meditator than I could ever aspire to be. He was a emergency room nurse and a trained medic. He worked his whole life for the Red Cross and UNESCO, coordinating relief efforts in war zones and in natural disasters all over the world. He also was a huge fan of Gilbert and Sullivan music. And I'm really sad because I haven't put any GNS on the stereo and blasted it for Gert yet, but I'm sure other people have. In Ireland, he was born in Germany, but he immigrated to Ireland, and that's where he died of cancer. And this is part of a conversation that I had with him. He's still my friend, and from the world to spirit, I think we're going to be able to be closer because there's no distance anymore between us. So I want to tell you about his experience of his death, which was so amazing. And I'm not going to paraphrase. I'm going to play the recording. Gert was in hospice when he died. He had diminished quite severely, very similar to my brother's journey with cancer. So let's hear what he has to say, though, not what I have to say. He says, for much of the time that he appeared to be alive in that bed, he really wasn't there. He had already gone back to some of the beautiful places around the world where he had meditated. For example, some of these gorgeous temples, and he meditated above them. He experienced the energy of the temple and felt complete oneness, complete relaxation, and he was extremely detached from his body, extremely detached from even when, like, say, the nurses wiped his mouth or washed his body. He said, I was observing. He said, I was not that. I was already not that, talking about his body, but he was aware of where his body was, aware of who was attending it, aware of when he appeared asleep. When it was very quiet in the hospice, he would go back and sit with himself, much like the Buddhist chant with the deceased or sitting Shiva. He would go back and sit with his body as if he was somebody that Gert loved, someone who was very dear to him, Sometimes he would go into the body and interact with some of the nurses, but it felt more logical to Gert to be outside of his body, observing the processes that his body was undergoing. He did not substantially identify the body with himself. It wasn't not me, but it wasn't me either. I was already flying, I was already traveling. But what I was doing at the time was holding myself mentally in the energy of meditation. Sometimes I would be sad for that body that could not sustain life anymore. But already my experience of life had been so diminished by the cancer, I knew there was no coming back, no turning back. So then I asked Gert, did you have a life review? He said, as the body gave up the energy of life, there was a movement of sorts. He felt a movement in his spirit of simply being mentally out of his body to being completely out of his body. He says there was a whoosh, a sensation of movement, and he knew he would not have access to that body anymore. The way he is describing the life review, he says there was a collapse of time. He saw his entire life, but all at the same time, as if time had collapsed, as if his whole life took place in a nanosecond. He saw all of it to incredible detail. Even someone walking on the other side of the street who was meaningless to him. He saw details he didn't remember registering. So he knows that he has all access to those memories of every second of his lifetime. That's all accessible to him. This is what that experience illustrated to him, that all of those memories were in his body. The experiences that we have are so registered somewhere in our physical body, our auric body, our mental body, our emotional body. And in that moment, it all goes with, it leaves, it goes with the mind and the soul. It's like you see everything you're bringing with you. So you know it is all registered now in a non-physical way and with you. It was just a factual experience. It wasn't like he was judging himself or the events. It was just factual. What happened in the story of Gert that I experienced as Gert in that lifetime. And that was the end of this part of the meditation with Gert. And I know there's no judgment. I know there isn't. There's only a continuity. And so I hope this blew your mind the way it blows mine every time I read this. And what this gave to me was an understanding that I am not my story in this lifetime. I'm more, I will be more, I was more before. Oh, and another interesting little fact about Gert. My husband, myself, and Gert were born in the same year, within about a month of each other. And, you know, I said to Gert when he was alive, I said, Gert, I am sure that we were all in the waiting room together, all in potential, waiting to come into physical. And in the meditation, he said to me, yes, I remember that. He said, we all had big plans. So my husband and I knew Gert before this lifetime. And my relationship with Gert, now that he's in spirit, can be incredibly vital, especially if you've read my book, if you're familiar with my work. He is waiting for his 95-year-old mother, and he will be here close by. And I'm really looking forward to a lot more exchange with Gert. So thank you for coming to play with these ideas. My website is howspiritworks.com. Until I see you again, please be well and please be blessed. See you next time. Bye-bye.